All right, we're live on Facebook. And I'll now admit our on-time arriving guests. It's 7:01. And I'll wait another minute to see if there are more because, my gosh, you three are profoundly popular. We oversold tickets to the event. So I don't know if that translates into people being here now, but obviously there's an interest and you've all got great followings. So I'm just going to give them another minute on this Sunday before the American holiday. That's some folks' favorites, often a great, great event. But I'll launch because I do a lot of blah blah in the beginning. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 37th or so, maybe 38th. I'm not great at counting. Reading in the Speculative Sundays Poetry Reading Series. We are live on Facebook via Zoom. I'm Akua Leslie Hope, speaking to you from the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the Western Door in the southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. I pay homage to the Seneca, past, present, and future, as I do to my own ancestors by whose grace I exist and am sustained. This event is funded in part by poets and writers with public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the New York State Legislature. This reading is being recorded, so if you have concerns, please remove your image, as I see some folks have. Inaugurated in September 2020, this series seeks to remediate the paucity of presentations of speculative poetry by its living creators. Speculative Sundays poetry reading series has presented dozens of poets thus far. Speculative poetry, the poetry of possibilities, humanity's first verse, includes alternate history, cryptids, monsters, cyberpunk, dystopia, fairy tales, fabulism, fantasy, folklore, futurism, horror, magic, mythology, occult, paranormal, robots, science fiction, shifters, slipstream, solar punk, space opera, superheroes, supernatural, sword and sorcery, sword and soul, steampunk, time travel, post-apocalyptic, and weird. It takes all poetic forms, plus one of its own called sci-fi who. We've got three wonderful, accomplished, engaging poets this evening. And the first is Denise Dumars. She's published hundreds of poems in magazines, journals, and anthologies. She's the author of 7 volumes of poetry. Oh, I'm so impressed. 2 volumes of short stories and 2 nonfiction books. She's been nominated for the Riesling Award, the Pushcart Prize, the Dwarf Stars Award, and the Elgin Award. Her most current chapbook, Animal Gnosis, has just been published by Alien Buddha Press. A retired college English professor and former librarian, Literary agent and entertainment journalist, she's a full-time writer now. Denise speaks at various conferences and conventions, including the Eaton Conference on Science Fiction, the World Fantasy Convention, WesterCon, LostCon, StokerCon, WorldCon, and many more. She lives in Los Angeles's beautiful South Bay region. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm going to start with a couple of fantasy poems and then go into a little science fiction, a little science. This one is called The Crystal and Pony. It's a teeny bit steampunk. My sweet, the rattle and steam and clink of the road is no place for a child in hair ribbons, flocked pink and frothy flocks. There is no room in these filthy burrows with many stairs up to our rooms for the delicate dun fetlocks of the small horses of the Shetlands. But in the basement, there are wonders cast away and lost, forgotten, yet anyone with quick and nimble fingers can make a beast of steel and bronze. Brother played at crystal radios, but we have other uses for the bones of the earth. With a horn of twisted brass, a mane and tail of spun glass, a repurposed dress form for a body, at night we work wonders. Old horsehide, quartz cabochons dyed in bluing for the eyes, hooves painted gold, and the right magic, and, my dear, you have your pony. And oh, she is realistic, at least, as in the way that I remember you. Eldritch, Merriam-Webster. Eldritch, from Middle English Elfrich, fairyland. This is no place for children. The darker spaces between the leaves stare in. The webbing there will suck them dry, return them wizened elders in pinafores, small bodies shriveled in their swaddling. They will not come home alone. Plait of hair on separating scalp. No, what lies beneath is not the tiny beating heart of one's beloved offspring, but the gurgle of corruption. There is no light in their eyes. Brown, blue, green, black, all reflect a silvery gray given by the darkness from that outer ultra world. It would be best if you return them. Let them espy the water in the pond, the sparkling dewdrops on the petals of the hellebore and iris. Let them reach and find the silt, the smiles that stare up from the waters. Now a little science fiction. Insectoid apes. That's what they called us. Skunk apes with exoskeletons, quickly detachable for easy assembly, until they learned that the electronica was optional, but well worth the extra cost. But all the organic matter, including the smell, came with the original packaging, ready for the children to enjoy on backwater planets. Real tech, just a memory. Play acting, really easy. Batteries, unfortunately, are not included, and we never tell them in advance that the fuel we operate on is meat. Let's mend some fences. Mending fences. There is no understanding of the cold of outer space. It's like the ice between us, unvoiced, the silence of the stars. Out here, the bones break free in increments. This is science fact. Is it only these molecules that hold us together? Are we meant to experience absolute zero, the deadly cold of indifference or hate? It is not a question. Speech travels infinitely like radio signals from another galaxy, going we know not where and ending up alone. We cross the barriers of time to mend the fence of space. Please take my hand. There is so much more to say. Now, this poem was nominated for a couple of things, and it was based on an old table I found in the back room when I inherited my parents' house. Snails, or maybe they were termites, exotic roaches, quixotic silverfish, Van Gogh come back as a bug, mad swirls on the old tabletop, left long in the splintered patio, tunnels of staccato rampaging across once pure sanded stained surface, man remaking wood in his own round-faced image, only to be remade, no, not back to tree, but forward to the future of creation. No five-fingered fiend claiming authorship, but bubbling up from the pristine surface, extra-dimensional patterning, a mad excrescence unimagined in our expectations. No, we are not the only artists here. Here's a silly one. The captain calls a meeting. Somebody left one ajar, so now they've learned how to open a hatch. Don't look so innocent, Hyalkar. I know you've been smoking again. No, they're not from what they call Io. It's where they ended up. What kind of creature fouls its own nest? And how did they manage without wings? Okay, this is more of a science poem than a science fiction poem. It's called Seeing the Comet. I think it got nominated for a pushcart. All of a kind, we joined the others, crossing the bridge marked closed. Black shorts, dark hoodies. We were of the faith. One supplicant brought a dog for show, but it wasn't about the dog. To the right of the sickle moon, neon yellow-orange, above the conifers, beside the electrical tower, we saw it. The smudge, the blink and you'll miss it. Did I really see it? My eyes watered in the misty evening breeze, the silence of this dark park, a blanket. That bridge across that drainage ditch was like a crossroads. No one goes to parks at 10 o'clock at night, but we did. We'd come out for a pinpoint of light, a smudge of paler than evening blue, a dust bath for the clouds. We saw it, Neo-wise. Not much compared to Hale Bop, you said, when we got back to the car. No, and we didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I looked down at my black Rikas, silent on the wide, dark street. I don't read a lot of formalist poetry, but this is one of them. And it was published in, I've suddenly forgotten where it was published. Dead Summer. In the dead of summer that we all are about to know, each sad longing crisped and sundered from the deaths of long ago. When the blackened window opens and the flame is upon the smoke, 1,000-year-old trees perish. Our pursuits are but a joke. Why worry of gold or pattern your life on a foolish plan when all is about to be shattered? Farewell to the heirs of man. A sere summer coughs us out like breath of a pestilent breeze. No more children play and gambol. They can only choke and wheeze. For this you have traded your future. For this you have lost your past. In all these temporary pleasures, you are about to learn what lasts. For this one, I've got two more. This one is in the current issue of Starline. This glittering. At first they came for jewels, tired of mining in the dead worlds, the clash of asteroids, the angry flares of suns, and violent storms of gas giants. Oh no, it's what the aliens noticed first. A gleam in the oversized eyes, like the gems they hungered for, and so soft, the jewel-eyed stealther. Its eyes lustrous as polished chromium, gem quality corundum. Ah, they've come to the right place. And so the sixth-fingered future folks explored the earth for felines. But just one little problem: teeth and claws like shards of glass. In the end, they left them here. They mined and rued the time they had wasted on small mammals that put up such strong resistance. When they left, we wept with relief and held our small companions, those jewel-eyed stealthers, worth more than diamonds, rubies. But even then, we didn't know they'd brought one home, cloning green-eyed joy, precious as a gem, and saving other worlds from their rapacious prospecting, this glittering taste of home. And this is my last one. I don't have it printed out because I no longer have it on any computer. It was published about 25 years ago. And although a couple of anachronisms in it, but some of the content is very appropriate today. So this is the last one I'll read. It's by far the darkest. It's called Coming Home from my book, Speaking Bones, which was published by Dark Regions Press. Coming home. As the cryocopter lands, I see the gravid corpses lined up along the runway. The bodies have mostly dried tan, like devilfish, but for the large bellies, lumpen and slaty, like a clutch of dinosaur eggs. I look at the calendar. The mayor's car pulls up to the curb. It has to be this way, he tells me. The gerrymandered streets sodden, with fresh slurry covering the blood. The bodies of studio execs pollute the marshlands, Bayona Creek, the LA River. It has to be this way, he says. The president smiles in the limo vid. His lips are ragged from the microchip edges he's pulled out. His ears are bloody holes flush with his head. All this to make a point. I shrug, I take some amyl, demerol, and dust, spread more green new flesh along my wounds. A torch flares in the daytime darkness when we reach downtown. The electricity is gone again, the mayor continues. It's good to have you back, you know, he says. But I stayed in Birmingham too long. Havana, Port-au-Prince, and Nolens. In Bahia, the firstborns wrapped around the landing gear of warships for their maiden flights, enfolded into the body of each ship like a parasite. I shot 3 surveillance probes out of the sky during Carnival, so who knows, maybe the sacrifice works. I found this in the desk drawer, said the mayor in his office. The bag was nearly dust. It had once been something organic. Old money, I say, the thready green bills fluttering to the steel-plated floor. Count it, he told me. His eyes were grim. 125 million, I asked, calculating on my arm patch. It's something anyway, he said. But you suppose lost it long ago. I turned my filter back, and once again my skin was ecru. It's funny how some things get lost, he said, reaching for his neck pouch, but I'd already blown his stomach away, his pink and gray intestines fouling the genuine wood of his desk. I rushed for towels, a cleanse maid, anything to clean the rare mahogany object. But his brain still lived, and he threw open his throat with a snick and blew off the rest of my left hand. On the wall vid, the president droned on. He bragged about his new humanitarian aid program, the one that salvaged the gravid corpses and built nurseries for the growing infants of the dead. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was stunning and amazing. And thank you, bravo. I love your sly humor, how you mix some of that in there, your sardonic humor, your dry humor. Um, very much appreciated. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, everybody.
Our next reader is Jean-Paul L. Garnier, the owner of Space Cowboy Books bookstore and publishing house, producer of Simultaneous Times podcast, a 2023 Laureate Award winner, BSFA Ignite and British Fantasy Award finalist. He's also editor of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association's Starline magazine. This man does tons of work. He's unbelievable. He's also deputy editor in chief of Worlds of If and Galaxy magazines. In 2024, he won the Laureate Award for Best Editor. He's written many books of poetry and science fiction, including Betelgeuse Dimming, one of my favorite, Proving Grounds, Future Anthropology, and his forthcoming sci-fi coup collection, which is a jewel of deliciousness. The future is brief. Welcome, Jean-Paul. And I thought I asked you, but let's double check that I did.
There
Here
we
we
go.
go.
Thank you so much, Akua, for hosting. Denise also wrote the introduction for The Future is Brief. So thank you in lovely company. I'm honored to be reading with you, Denise and Jenna, this evening. I'm going to start off, all my heroes are scientists, or most of them. So I'm going to start off with a few odes to some of my favorite scientists. These first appeared in Choi Needle's number 45, The Science Issue, which is a poetry magazine from my area. This one is for Mae C. Jemison. Dancer in space, model for self-actualization, never losing purpose, giving meaning to endeavor. Whether in the camps or enterprise, symbol of determination, remind us there is always hope. Leap from the floor to the heavens. Your dream comes true for us all, as if zero G is there for movement of the first dancer in space. She danced when she got to space. Is there anything more cool? That's like the coolest thing a human being's ever done. This one's for Lenny Vestergaard Howe. Harnessing the incomprehensible, changing the speed limit, thought into condensate. Information will not be lost. Through your slow glass, your frozen clouds, the photon speaks at human speeds. Are you the time traveler of the small distances? Has the cosmos changed as pulses filter from nature? When you turn it back into light, may your name be solidified in the permanent waves. This one is for Valentina Tereshkova. The day the sky took off its hat, you gave every woman the cosmos. Not quite the train you'd imagined, as a girl, proof of dreams real. From farm to factory to mill to space. You landed again in the fields, shared milk and gave space to the people, Mother Russia incarnate. Still humble, as war, children, we dreamt of peace. Even though they almost lost you to the heavens, you point to Mars. The seagull cannot be grounded for long. This next one is one of the pieces from Beetlejuice Dimming. It's one of the short ones. I'll spare you the really long one tonight. This one's called Sky Burial. Our first sky burial was today, frozen, traveling forever. She would have wanted it this way. As she left for the stars, we cried for arriving. A comet now gone to heaven. Bodies meant to deteriorate, freeing the energy, vacating the dimension, frozen, traveling forever, static zero, absolute soul, void calling, cold, impersonal, open arms of God. A tunnel of darkness, nothing like the reports. One cannot leave when they have already left. I could hear their voices, viewed from above. I begged not to be sent to the void, yet human sadness needs remains gone. With diminished crew, spirits plummet, stars become graveyard, infinitude populated with loss. We see her as a star, and now they all look the same. Will she travel the forever or join with sun? Transmutation ends with cold. Spirits break entropy if freed from mass, or time can stop as your light is trapped. The containment field entered from the void, frozen, traveling forever, meant to let go, caged through sky burial. May suns call to me. I would grow to draw them in. Perhaps consciousness could, if freed, bodies meant to deteriorate. As a vapor, I could move, taking their sorrow with me, as I leave all stars to become one. I'm going to read some brief poems from a little mini series of chapbooks. I tend to write in thematic clusters, and often individually the poems won't really feel speculative per se, but thematically across it's a speculative theme. This is from a little mini book called Utopian Problems, and this one's called Art Won't Be Enough. Give my pen to the architect, hand me a shovel. My meat may be more useful than my mind. Give my knife to the hunter. May there be nothing to defend. Give my repose to the wind. There is work to do. Give my ideas to the collective. Let the group decide. Give my youth to the young, all elders to parent. Give my poems to the fire. Let us warm by these energies together. Will they kill us? In grand tradition, as we move into a better world, separate in our attempt to unite, grander purpose, will they kill us for doing so? Will success threaten the status quo we try to fix? Autonomy has no place in the world system of wealth, so they kill those practicing new models. Do we defend ourselves, becoming all which we tried to leave behind? Small groups may trade blows or goods. It does not appear the same from all angles. So we move on to the telepathy machine, which is all on the theme of telepathy. The telepathy machine worked perfectly, too much so. 2 layers of thought, 1 goal achieved was overwhelming, still doable. Our layered minds seldom speak to singular subjects. The thoughts were not shocking. Whoa was the consensus. However, the sensations, confused bouquets of scent poorly mixing, tactile floods of skin, 3D landscapes jumbled, superimposed, confounded bodily pain, variations of color, every sound echoing, visual triangulation, too many eyes. If no observer had milled near, neither of us could have located the off switch. It was fun thinking about telepathy and how it might affect us because we all think so differently. And this one is called Pictureless, and I have aphantasia, so I don't see imagery in my mind. I don't have a mind's eye, as it were, which some people mistake for lacking imagination. I guess it's just the image part that's gone, and how strange it would be to see suddenly if I was in your mind. Images forced their way in, my aphant mind strobing without reference, searching for reference with no mind's eye, hideous synesthesia. And when you looked, the feelings came, all blank, black, and heavy, sonorous, aromatic, tactile. My pictureless harsh came upon you without reference. For my next little thematic chunk, this is from a chapbook called Time's Arrow. Anyone who's ever hung out with me and allowed me to prattle knows I'm obsessed with time and time travel. Thorny subject as it is, but it's endlessly fun to think about. If the cup breaks, then I drop it. Effect becomes cause. If this, then both directions point toward chaos. This 2D view ignores the expanding sphere. Direction becomes infinite points, length, and perfect. The arrow freezes when velocity and position cannot meet. Observer collects, ordering shards into cups. The mess goes away, and entropy is a state of mind. Next, I'll read a few from my first poetry collection, which was a series of chapbooks collected into a book with an introduction by Brian Tawawara. It's called Future Anthropology, and this is a poem called Deep Spectrum. Gases condense, closer living star, finite soon inward come apart. Cosmic ray, endless void, encounter matter, disregard. Encounter conception, rearrange, twisted helix finds new ways. Potential digression uncommonly enhance, small flash behind eyes, God's dice weighted chance. Limitless string, spool made of the past, numerous coils orderly wrapped. Current inductor, no monopole, forever possibility, omnidirectional. And this is a little more of a science poem, but it's about light pollution, which is a big issue for me. We live in cities, we cut ourselves off from the cosmos, from creation itself. It's one of the reasons I live in the middle of nowhere, is I want to convene with the universe every night, and it's such a shame. We could just, it's the one pollution we could just hit a switch and fix. Just turn our lights off. In our cities, shining lights blot the sky, keeping us safe. Hiding the universe, attacking each other, afraid of the darkness that could disappear in a field of stars. Navigation lost, the flooded lights keep our distance from darkness and each other. Unveil the universe, stand under same sky, remove the distance between one another. Are the stars not far enough? Not sure how I'm doing on time, but at least one more. The last mind. I, the last robot, have no need to write. No one stands to do it, no other sentience to read. Once, only one person stood. Only through action did they become God. Wrote for no reader. Codes, such as I, perceived by such as I, standing alone, only for a time. Only through action can I become God out of loneliness. Shall I do another? Is there enough time? I don't want to eat into Jenna's time. One more. Okay. Gray goo. Tube, transistor, nano, fallen short to liquid, faceless for so small. They entered us in search of disease, pinpoints of destruction, joined natural tissue, entering us in strains, unimagined nature, seeing through our eyes, demanding changes. No marching metal men, our amalgamation miniature, structureless and usurping, breaking both mother and father, they slid right in. Thank you so much.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh my gosh. There is so much that I want to discuss with you and enjoy from you. And I love telepathy. I think about time travel. I've written about light pollution, and the last about unimagined nature. Yep. Thank you so much, Jean Paul. Delighted to have you here. And now we've got Jenna Lay, the author of the poetry collections Six Rivers from NYQ Books, A History of the Cetacean American Diaspora, Indolent Books, and Manatee Lagoon from Acre Books. She's been a winner of the Poetry by the Sea Sonnet Competition and Sonnet Crown Competition. Whoa, I just got to take a moment to go. I love sonnet crowns, love sonnet crowns. Oh, her poems appear in AGNI, Alaska Quarterly Review, Denver Quarterly, Los Angeles Review, Massachusetts Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Pleiades, Poet Lore, Verse Daily, West Branch, and elsewhere. She works as a physician and educator in my hometown, New York City. Welcome, Jenna Lay.
Thank you so much, Akua. It's such a great honor to read with both Denise and Jean Paul, both of whose work I've admired for a long time. So sometimes when one reads the news, it feels like this struggle for feminist liberation is sort of an unending cyclical process. So I'm going to begin by reading a somewhat older poem of mine that continues to feel relevant. It takes this seemingly unending cyclicity as its theme. It's a poem based on the ancient Greek myth of Apollo and Daphne, but it relocates the characters to a futuristic setting many centuries hence. And this poem was actually first published in Starline, and it's called Commander Daphne. Her hands, stiff, gauntleted, close leadenly around the spaceship's glassy red door handles. In a one bound, she flings her silver-suited body toward the narrow airlock. Heavy-booted legs are first to arrow through the tight, round portal. Next, Her thighs in haste slide through. Then, like a girdle, the threshold hugs her waist. But all this time, the swarm has been gaining on her quickly. Shifting shape, it forms a tentacle that thickly coils around her throat, as if it would obstruct her breath. She yelps a note into the mouthpiece tucked inside her helmet. This initiates a morph. Her fingers start to hiss like noisy ocean surf, transmuting into cells of energy, pure light. She will turn up somewhere else, reconstitute her slight corporeal frame someplace it's safer, and start over. She always does. She's erased Apollo like this forever. So sometimes I find a speculative mode of thinking, it feels like the most tolerable way to grapple with current events sometimes. And I think that was the place I was in mentally when I wrote the next poem. And this poem is called Under. Under the politician's monument, there was a grub twisting in the topsoil, and a top sail from an ancient ship folded 9 times. And a mole with pale, human-like fingers prodding a tree root. And under this, a chest seething with stolen coins, and an aquifer dank with depleted water, and a cave system beating on for miles and miles, and a vein of gold ore, and a cache of diamonds, and a hoard of sapphires, and under this, a corpse moaning the name of its child. So recently, daylight savings time happened, as it does, and I don't know about you, but it never does positive things for my outlook. So this next poem was first published in Light, and it's called On Daylight Savings Time. Locking up the store at 5 p.m. in mid-November, I feel horror clutch my throat with twig-dry fingers as I watch an overlarge full moon, gold hoop skirt hemmed with spidery gray lace, lurch into sight. I know that daylight savings time is to blame for its too early advent. All the same, my body feels betrayed, as when the bite of rheumatism makes my kneecaps hiss. Too old, too fast, too soon. Years prior to this, I met a green man on a mountainside who offered me eternal life if I'd consent that very hour to be his bride. And if he returned tonight, I might say yes. So yeah, I feel like if you squint at them, there's a lot of natural phenomena that look sort of like a courtship dance between 2 parties, like one natural and one supernatural. And the supernatural party is like making an overture toward the natural party, and then the natural party has the choice of whether to accept or reject the overture. And that's sort of what's going on. The next poem I'm going to read as well. This is published in Passages North, and it's called Sumanka. Come, gloat once more on my windowsill. The grooves your talons gouged in the wood grain have grown less sharp as the gray years go. Prove this is no prank. I enclose in this letter a peach pit. Plant it. The first grub that gorges will guide you to my door. This next poem was in Alaska Quarterly Review, and it's called Guardian Angel. In my room full of phonograph trumpets, I listen for one voice from miles far off to rise above the rest. Your voice. Then I become the owl I am, and using Earth's magnetic field to guide me, I fly into your mouth, make your palate vibrate with a whoosh of my wings. I tangle in the windsock of your breathing. I am the brown paper bag in which you bury your head to avoid hyperventilating. I tangle with your throat until the carbon dioxide you exhale makes a mist that wipes clean your memory of ever having not been enough, of ever having been anything other than deserving. So I'm going to read, the next few poems I'm going to read are from an ongoing project I've been working on. It's a series of speculative poems drawing inspiration from the life and work of the 19th century English novelist Charlotte Bronte. And I'm going to begin with this poem that was published in DMQ Review, and which I sort of whimsically imagine myself in conversation with Bronte's ghost. It's called Scarsdale Station. Charlotte Bronte and I are standing under the overpass, sheltering from a thickening April morning rain. All the other commuters are intent on staking out strategic positions on the train platform so they can sit in the train car of their choice when the train arrives. Charlotte and I only care about staying dry. Charlotte is wearing a black stuff dress, which does not take well to getting wet. I am wearing my favorite socks. Any train car will do fine for us. I am heading to work. Charlotte is heading into immortality. Well, she's already there, but she's moving deeper and deeper into her death, the way a cat shifts its bulk to stay inside a sunbeam. This does not require getting a good seat on the train. Instead, it asks that we stand beneath this overpass, listening to pigeons make low vibrations in their dry niches, as though unaware of the rain. And the next three poems they're very loosely based on minor characters or scenes from Charlotte Bronte's last novel, Villette. And I've sort of given them each kind of a speculative twist or leaned harder into the speculative elements that were already latent. And this next is a sonnet that's forthcoming in the Journal 1. It's called The Poisoned Aquifer. While I was girl alive, they made me crawl inside a tomb beneath the pear tree's roots and sealed the door because I had dared to call a spade a spade. Each year, fat yellow fruits would thud against my roof and shake my bones in the twill dress that was now my only skin. Despite my candor, no one moved the stones heaped on my grave to dig me up again. Thrilled schoolgirls whispered tales about the wrong I had borne. Their titillation made me strong. The more they talked, the taller I became. First 7 feet, then 12. My tomb's walls burst and out my thighs transformed to rivers thrust. Their waters taste like pear, but scald like flame. And this next sonnet, sorry, I'm gonna use your sonnets, tries to imagine a new ending for Charlotte Bronte's novel, a more speculative and hopeful ending. It's called Epilogue. For months, the drowned man drifted with a mollusk, corpse draped at times by tentacles of squid, that when they tire of using their hydraulics to swell and squirt and swim, will stroll the grid of avenues sketched on the ocean floor, like manicured Manhattan matrons taking the air, their twisting limbs tattooed with pores that kiss dead sailors' cheeks until they waken. For him with whom this story is concerned, this reveille rang out a decade post his mortem. He set straight his hat, Brine churned his coat sleeves, now translucent as a ghost. Joining a seal migration, he returned, bound by his groom vows to his native coast. So the theater is a place that can obviously feel very magical. I love the theater. It's a place where it feels like anything could happen next. And the next sonnet explores what it would be like if a more literal kind of magic took hold of a theater, and it's called stage magic. I read the script aloud. A dapper dandy, gilt-edged lace ruffles pooling around his wrists and throat, strews compliments like powdered candy on a giggling girl, and then begs her for a kiss. The play's director, not quite satisfied, enjoins encore, and so I re-rehearse. An oily Don Juan slithering up beside an innocent demands outrageous favors. The director nods approval. Opening night arrives. I heave a breath and march on stage. A youth misunderstood, eyes stormy bright, strides fiercely toward his love. Their lips engage, a mutual coup. The script incinerates. The pair sprout leathery wings, hiss, lift off, weightless. So I'm just going to end with one short one. This is from my latest collection, Manatee Lagoon, which is, I don't know, it felt hopeful when I read it, which is why I picked it to be the last poem. It's called How We Met. I want to confess everything about the cow behind the fence, at whose sight I blurted horse, so that I then had to pretend it was a horse I saw. What fibs we tell to gloss over the fact God's fly is always down. I looked the other way to spare him unease, and that's how I met your blue eyes across the cocktail lounge. And it's how I met everyone I've ever met. Thank you.
Oh, that was marvelous. Marvelous. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask all the poets to unmute at this moment so that we can all chat together. There we go. Yay, team. Oh, what a wonderful array of readings. I enjoyed you all so very much, and we have just a few minutes left. I'm wondering if there are any questions from the audience. And even if there aren't, I have a few questions that I hope you all will take a moment to answer. Jenna in particular talked about the use of the speculative gaze in challenging times as a way to speak to or through. How do you, Denise and Jean-Paul, feel or use the speculative? Is it a realm in which you always create? How did you come to it?
I'll let Jean-Paul answer first.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to be a scientist, and my math is no good. But I realized that in science fiction, I could break the laws of physics and get away with it, be the natural outlaw, as it were. So that made me gravitate towards it. And speaking to Jenna's point on that, and using the speculative to heal or to cope with the things our species go through. I've always believed that, if we're to have a wonderful future together, we have to imagine it first. That's where everything begins. And if we if we get mired down and not imagining it, we're not going to create it for everyone. And the speculative arts, I think, are so important for that, because the future is our medium. We can do dry runs, we can do warnings, we can praise hope, and that's so important, and that has always attracted me to speculative fiction and to speculative poetry.
I kind of see the dark side of things. I'm primarily known for darker science fiction and for horror, which I tried to stay away from a little bit today. But I tend to have
Not totally.
I
You said this is science fiction, and I was like, that sounded like horror to me, but
well, I tend to, maybe it lessens the horror a little bit when I anticipate it. And I think that's what I do. And maybe I do that because it is a warning. It's like, dude, if we're going down this road, this is where it leads. And for me, I always had looked at something like the Federation on Star Trek as the model for our future. And, you know, what do I get instead? I get the Klingon Empire, only without the honor.
Thank you, Denise.
Oh, I like that so much. That is, it sadly rings too true and too compellingly now. And so there is much refuge even in the dire, as Jean-Paul says, in having a prediction, you know, then maybe we can prepare psychically, if not physically, but hopefully both, so that the flesh survive as well as the mind. One last question. How long have you been doing this? So let's start with Denise.
Probably as long as I've been writing poetry, I've written speculative. I published my first poem at age 19, and it was in a speculative small press magazine. And that was quite some time ago. Several decades ago, in fact. So yeah, pretty much the whole time I've been writing poetry, I've written in the genres, I guess. I think to me, that illuminates reality the best way. I don't know.
Jean-Paul?
I guess my first attempts were maybe, I mean, I've been writing poetry for, gosh, like I said, I'm bad at math, over 30 years. And my first attempts into genre work were 25 years ago now, I suppose, 24 years ago, maybe. But in 2014, I decided to dedicate myself completely to speculative works. And that's been just about all I've written in the last decade. Although I did just write a Western that just came out, and my first erotica book. So I'm branching out now, and I've written a horror book recently, which hopefully will come out soon.
You're so prolific. Wow.
It looks like that on the outside. There's a big backlog. I've barely written poetry this year. My editing duties have really taken over, which is not a complaint. Reading for Starline has just been an incredible treasure, and I feel like I've gotten to know everybody's voices very intimately. It's gotten harder and harder to select because it's such a wonderful
We're
group
gonna
of
miss
people.
you.
Well, my successors, John Reinhardt, will do a wonderful job. I'm looking forward to just reading for pleasure and not having to say no to so many good poems, because that's really a part of the job of editor. And it's the heartbreaking, really hard one. You know, I've got 3,500 poems I need to whittle down to 90. Naturally, you have to say no to really quality work. So I'm gonna be. It's been a wonderful honor, and I'm gonna be happy to not have to be the one to say no anymore.
Thank you so much. And Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see there being I mean, to me, there isn't so much a hard, clear distinction between, I think, genre and non-genre. I think so much of even what we consider like non-genre, literary writing, what have you, I mean, is always the greatest of it has always been fueled by speculative elements. I mean, I've always been so many of the things that have inspired me have been, things like Greek myths. Like right now, I've been working on a series of poems, about Cupid and Psyche, who, I was introduced to as a young child. But those are the influences that have stayed, strongest with me throughout my life, with these influences from Greek literature, from fairy tale. So I think same as Denise. I think as long as I've been writing, I've been incorporating speculative elements, mythological, the fantastical. Yeah, I keep going back to the like the fairy tales are my roots. I mean, that's what created me, and that keeps coming back to fuel my work.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's after 8. Our time flew by because all of your voices are so engaging, compelling, and skilled. I thank you for the insight, for the creativity, for your time. Thank you to all who are here with us now and who will listen to us later. May you all stay well, be well, have happy holidays, and may nature be kind to you. Peace, peace, and good night.